everybody, and welcome to WordCast number 70. We know it's been a little while. It's been 2 weeks technically, because we missed one because you were sick, and then we missed another one because
you're right.
Yeah. So we're down 2 weeks. We apologize, but we'll have some content coming from one of the other ones that we filmed but didn't publish for separate videos later. But we got a lot of interesting news this week. We've got AMD stuff as well as just a pile of, drama, basically.
Yeah, Google drama, Facebook drama.
Yeah, pretty big sections on that.
Some radical LEDs.
Yeah, radical LEDs, which I think is
it's pretty radical.
It's pretty radical, and also it's rad.
Mm-hmm.
And also, radical LEDs are a problem, just like radical anything.
Roll intro.
It's great. So AMD doubles their L3 cache per CCX with Zen 2. Now, I actually didn't read a ton into that one, unfortunately, but is it confirmed or is it speculative?
So
it's not surprising, I will say.
So essentially what happened was in a database entry for Sysoft's Sandra software, they got some details about a 64-core Zen 2 ROM EPYC chip. And essentially what we know from this is that the cache configuration for L3 is 16 by 16.
Oh, okay, interesting.
And so that leads us to essentially believe that each chiplet of 8 cores, which we already knew each chiplet had 8 cores.
Yeah.
Each chiplet will have 2 quad-core CCXs.
So they're still going CCX route and everything.
Yeah, each with 8 megabytes of L3.
Okay, which is a lot. I mean, it's not exactly surprising, right?
Mm-hmm.
That they did that, especially for their high-end server parts. I mean, extra cache can make a huge difference depending on what you're doing. So I totally understand why they did that. Overall, I'm just really excited for Rome as a whole to come out and be a thing and see testing on it. I hope some YouTubers are able to get their hands on it to do testing pre-Threadripper, because I fully assume that we're going to see, I mean, we'll see a 32-core Threadripper, of course, next year, but I wonder if we're going to see a 64-core, or if you think we're going to stick with 32 and they're going to wait for a year after that to bump it up to 64, kind of like they did with the original.
Probably.
Yeah.
I think they'll wait.
I think that would make more sense because Windows already has problems with 32 cores anyway. So
they can work on trying to deal with that, and then they can also get clock speeds up a bit or something.
Yeah, because that's something that Threadripper relies on.
Yeah, Threadripper definitely. Being an enthusiast, being a mixed-use chip so much.
That's the fun thing about Threadripper is it's more mixed use than server chips. You know, you wouldn't think that, but it really is. It's designed to do some of everything simultaneously, and that's something I'm excited to see what next gen can bring. And I'm also simultaneously glad that I waited, because what AMD's done here with the new layout in terms of the I/O die and stuff basically solves all the problems that Threadripper has with Windows Scheduler and games and all that kind of stuff. That should, in theory, fix all of that. So
yeah. Now, one thing I wanted to ask you about cache when it comes to Zen 2. I saw some people speculating or wishing that they would do this, and I don't know enough to know how much this would help. But some people were talking about the idea of maybe having some level of L4 cache being on the I/O chip to handle cache between all of the different chiplets. Would that be something that you think would actually help, or?
So that would make a difference. It's something that people have talked about doing before. I don't know how much of a difference. That's something that's hard to gauge, but I do think it could help.
Yeah.
It could help with the latency issues that we see with Infinity Fabric, and not so much latency, but I mean, maybe latency by inherently helping with bandwidth, if that makes sense, is something that might clog up the pipeline, is going to be able to be stored in that cache, and then there's room, so to speak, for more latency-oriented applications to get through. I don't know how big of a difference that would make real world, though. At least on a consumer end, on a server end, I could see that making a big difference. I mean, cache anywhere on a server end is great.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if they did try to do that, though. And there have been people talking about doing L4 caches and CPUs in general for a while. So it wouldn't surprise me if they would start with something in this kind of realm and this price bracket and all that stuff.
Nice.
So.
And then also, we are seeing that this has 512 kilobytes of L2 cache per core.
Which is a good amount.
Yeah.
It's pretty significant. I wonder what the L1 cache is. I don't think they listed that though in any of the stuff.
They didn't.
I'm interested in that. Level 1 cache is always interesting. It's funny though how crazy it scales down. 512 kilobytes.
Yeah, let me see.
Level
I
2.
think this picture mentions it at all. Yeah, it just shows.
Yeah, it's just showing level 2. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Level 2 and 3.
Interesting.
So,
yeah,
64 core, 1.4 gigahertz.
Yeah, that's the base though. I'm sure the boost is like insane. It just depends what you're doing. I do love that the number of threads 2 to 20 or number of devices 2. Okay, that's I wonder what that means. So threads is the 128, but number of devices 2. It's not 2 though. It's 8.
Devices though, maybe whatever. 2 of the.
Oh, okay.
So
we're 2 of them in a single. Okay, so it's a dual socket board that they're testing with. Okay. I wonder why only 128 threads then, though. You would think it would be 256.
Unless those weren't turned on yet, because this is a test.
And they weren't using SMT with it. Then.
Yeah,
that could be. I don't know. It's quite interesting, though. I'm really excited. I'm really, really excited for Rome to hopefully do something good.
Yeah.
So that's pretty great. Now, in some not so great AMD news, this one really disappointed me, actually. I'm pretty sad about this because I just feel like AMD has a good chance to ride the good press train to help them become more popular.
So we talked about this rumor before, too.
We did. Now,
when it was a rumor.
Yeah, when it was a rumor. That was the last podcast that was published, yeah. I think so. We talked about this. So the RX 580 2048. It's a Chinese-only card. We talked about it, and there was a rumor that they were going to be releasing an RX 580 that was just an RX 570, and they did. It's literally an RX 570.
Yeah.
It's got the same CUDA core count. It's got a CUDA core. I always say that by habit, and it makes me mad. It's got the same stream processor count. It's got a 40 megahertz higher base clock, which is like whatever because you could OC all the 570s to that level anyway. And it doesn't OC like way better or something. Like maybe if it was like I could understand some justification for it if it was like a really well binned chip and they were hitting like 200 megahertz higher on all these, but they're not. The overclock is the same as any other 570. So
yeah, because like if they could, especially if they could overclock it enough to make up for some of the difference in cores.
Yeah, I mean, if they could somehow get close to 580 performance, but with less cores, I'd be accepting of that, especially if they'd done something where the clocks were high enough that in testing, it was, like, pretty rare that it went one direction or the other, right? Like, they were really competitive cards, and I'd be fine with it because it saves them money.
Yeah.
And consumers aren't getting a worse performing product, albeit they're getting a different product. I still don't like it, but I would have been okay with it.
Yeah.
But this is just downright lame. I mean, this is equivalent to the GT 1030 crap, where they NVIDIA released a GT 1030 with DDR4, and it performed horribly. And I mean, we've seen that before, but I don't know if we've seen this.
I don't think so, because we've seen rebrands, but it was over generations.
Yes, so we've seen that. I have seen, I think there was something from NVIDIA's 500 series that somebody mentioned that did this. But I'm not sure. I could be remembering it correctly. But it's been a long time at least. And when I say it, I mean like the 500 generation of GeForce cards, right? But it's been a long time since anything like this has happened, if it has ever happened, is they're literally taking a lower-end product and branding it as a higher-end product. And I think personally that's kind of unacceptable.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like having a Chevy Tahoe and putting a Suburban badge on it and charging an extra $20,000. It's like that's not how products work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It'd be like if Apple took the regular MacBook and called it a MacBook Pro.
Yeah, just a name change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's charge an extra $100.
Yeah, and then charge more for it. And that's what pisses me off so much about this. And even if they're not charging more for it, because it's hard with, conversion rates and stuff, since this isn't sold in the U.S., because AMD probably knows that people would freak out in the U.S.
I hope this stays in China.
Yeah, and maybe goes away eventually, right? But, okay, if this is the same price as a 570, right? They're just trying to pull people in and have them buy this one instead with the better branding, right? And that right there is stupid because you're not getting more money for that. You're literally, if you're selling it for the same price, AMD,
so
you don't get more money. You just get people buying it thinking they're getting something better.
The issue is for the consumers that are not well informed, and especially if this shows up in OEM machines.
Yeah,
and they just see 580, and if they see two machines, one with like a 1050 and one with a 580, and they buy the 580 one because they've seen some basic benchmarks a while ago. 580, look at how much better it is.
Yeah. It's misleading the consumers. Yeah. And so I just don't like this at all. I think this is really lame, and I don't know why Lisa and whoever else is over there working on this isn't getting mad. There's
no legitimately justifiable reason, in my opinion, to call a product by the higher end name other than intentionally trying to mislead consumers.
Yeah, I can't find another reason for this. This is just to make people think they're buying an RX 580 for a good deal, and they're getting a 570. And it's stupid. And if your justification is 40 megahertz clock speed increase, you need to go take a bath in liquid nitrogen. So
no, you should just call it a 570.4.
Yeah, I mean, really, they could call it a 575, and I wouldn't be that angry because it has a higher base clock. It'd be dumb.
Yeah,
but it wouldn't be like. This is just like...
I still feel like that would be misleading because, 40 megahertz, realistically, any third-party company can just do that.
No, that's true. So it still would be unacceptable.
Call it a 571.
Yeah. Or just a 570, since it's just a 570 core, and you change the name, and I don't understand why you guys think that's okay. I don't get it. I don't get why AMD...
it's
I don't
not
get
even
why...
like a new process node or anything.
Yeah, no, it's nothing special. And it's frustrating to me because it's like now all the companies are doing it. Mm-hmm. And it's like, so instead of consumers bitching solving the problem, it's literally done nothing. It's the company's just like, I was always like, oh, look at AMD. At least they're not doing 1030 stuff. And I mean, here we are. Now, albeit, yeah, for all you fun fanboys out there are going to say, well, it's not as bad as a 1030 because it's not half the performance of a 580. It's like 15% less. I don't care.
I would argue that this is worse because nobody buys a 1030 for gaming.
Some people do.
Okay.
Extreme budget. But...
vast majority of consumers don't.
Because a 1030 can perform pretty well, though. I mean, it can perform pretty well at 720 or 1080p.
But for the cost...
No, right, but I mean the DDR4, right, was, I feel like, it halved the gaming performance. It made it from a viable gaming card to a not viable gaming card.
What I'm saying is that for the market that card is in, if you're gaming, it's not much more to just buy a cheap 1050. It's not. It's almost an insignificant amount of money more.
No, this is true, and you should just buy a 1050. I mean,
and that's why, I agree with that. If you look at the sales numbers, if you look at Steam numbers, the 1030 is not a remotely significant card.
No, not in particular.
You could argue that the people buying that for gaming are buying it for something else and just happen to game.
Yeah,
it's such a small sales
because it is a small. Yeah, of course there is the mobile aspect to play into that.
Yes,
the 1030 is a mobile.
Is that MX 150?
Yeah,
1050 or whatever they call it.
Dude, I don't understand. Other problem, That's NVIDIA is just chopping. They take a card and they just put it on the chopping block. I don't understand.
So in a generation, are we going to see an RX 680 that's actually an RX 670, but it's called an RX 1080?
So at this point, who knows? Because I mean, we got NVIDIA over here, and they're like, all right, we got this GPU, we got this GP 104 GP, or no, what's that? Is it GP 104? I think it's a GP 104 cut down. Maybe it's a GP 106. GP 106, I think is what it is. So we've got a GP 106, right?
Yeah.
We got this, and we're going to brand it as an MX 150 in laptops, brand it as a GT 1030 on desktops, and then put DDR4 on it and brand it as a GT 1030 on desktops. But we're not going to put the DDR4 edition in laptops, which is where people would care less. And then we have AMD over here doing the exact same thing, and then we have Intel releasing the same damn product every year.
Yeah.
And at this point, it's just I don't understand the logic behind this because it's just misleading consumers, and it must work. Because if companies are continuing to do it, it must work, and the people need to get a hold of that and stop. But of course, as we want normies to get, so to speak, to get into PC gaming, this is the kind of stuff that hurts that. This actually hurts your future growth potential, AMD, NVIDIA, Intel. This hurts your future growth because you're going to steer people away, because when people do find out that, oh, I actually bought an RX 570 for a 580 price, they might be like, I'm just buying a console next year instead.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to deal with this kind of crap.
Exactly. Also, I take back what I said about the 1030. It has more people on Steam than the RX 580.
Okay. I bet you Steam identifies laptop MX 150s as 1030s, and that's where that number comes from.
Because it's at 0.56% of users. The RX 580 is at 0.5.
Yeah, so
I feel like that's lower than I expected for the RX 580.
No, not so much for the 580 because the 480 is a 580 and everybody already bought 480s.
The 480 is at 0.6.
Yeah, it's higher.
So
than
between
the
the two, it's at 1.1%, which is about on par.
But you have to you have to factor in though. You have to add the 480 and the 580.
No, that's what I did.
Oh, I didn't hear
to
you.
Get 1.1.
To get 1.1, so which puts it up pretty high.
Yeah, I mean,
puts it up in the what, the 970 realm?
Just below the 730.
Which was an insanely popular card for whatever reason. The 750 was a great card. The GTX 750, but yeah, see, there's a lot of budget gamers out there that they want to get a good gaming PC for $400.
Yeah.
You know, and the 1030 was capable of doing that, but you get the DDR4 edition, not anymore. It's not a viable gaming chip at that point. It's just crap. So there's all this kind of stuff just really frustrates me.
I mean, I do feel like with how many mobile cards are up here, it's mostly laptops bringing up the 1030.
Yeah, I would imagine that's how Steam's identifying it. I could be wrong. Search for MX150. Let's see if we get a MX150. Oh, MX150 is separate.
Nope, okay.
And it's okay. So 1030 is okay. People are buying them for gaming then, or at least using machines that come with them for gaming.
Yeah, but I mean, and plus, I mean, you can be having people buy those, but then just playing like Stardew, which
if they play any game, then then it registers that too.
Even if they just have Steam installed.
Yeah, if they have Steam installed. So, you know. But the point is, guys, just stop doing this. You're hurting your future growth potential. You're damaging your future market, and you're pissing off your enthusiasts. And neither of those ends are good. It's literally just a short-term ploy to get more money instead of playing the long-term ploy of making customers happy.
They managed to piss off U.S. consumers over a card that will very likely never see the light of day in the U.S.
Yes, we're pissed off here. We're across the freaking Pacific from where this is happening.
Yeah.
And we care because this is not okay.
Yeah.
And I mean...
Watch Intel be the one to not do this.
I mean, well, Intel... See, the thing is, though, Intel's basically done this with their CPUs, right?
I know, but I'm just saying with their GPU division.
Not doing the same. Yeah, I mean, maybe. I don't know. Like, and, you know, generational rebrands is one thing, right? That's just annoying, but whatever. Because we can generally figure it out, and you do make significant improvements in that period of time. Is a lot of times we see pretty big clock speed jumps, or we'll see like the just as an example, this isn't true, but just as an example, like a RX 480 become an RX 570 or whatever, right? And then have something that's higher end in the top tier, and that's all a little bit more like we can work around it. We think it's dumb depending on how you go about doing it, but it's not necessarily to mislead consumers because on a marketing standpoint of wanting to keep the product stack the same, I can understand that. It's like, well, you know, we're only really releasing one new card, but we don't want to just release partial generation stuff. You know, like Nvidia did that, but they named it RTX and they released 3, right? So I understand like full stack refreshes to keep the naming the same.
Vega.
They did, yeah, that's true, yeah. So that's more acceptable, but this is actually, I can't see any logical reason other than trying to get more money out of consumers.
Yeah, it's just a scam.
It's a scam because you can charge close to 580 prices, and the consumer thinks I'm getting a cheap 580 when really they're getting an overpriced 570.
I mean, even if you're charging 570 prices, again, going back to that is like, it might sway certain sales.
It could, yeah. And so then at that point, over in China, what is everything just going to be a 580?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, is everything just branded to 5? Why don't you brand your 560s as 580s as well? Just brand everything as 580s so people have no idea what they're getting.
Yeah.
Because it wouldn't be any better.
Yeah. Don't even have the 2048. Just RX 580 everything.
Yeah. Just do it. This is just disappointing to me.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate, and I wish there was more we could do directly about it.
I know.
But
yeah.
Anyway, with that being said, don't buy a 580 in China.
Yeah.
Any of them? In fact, I would say to boycott this. Literally, don't buy anything with a 580 if you're over in China.
Yeah. Don't import a 580. Just don't buy a 580.
Just don't. Yeah. In America, maybe because
import a 570 if you're in China and you really want to go with AMD.
Yeah.
Because it's the same card. Yeah.
What? What are you talking about? I'm introing from a cut? Hi, guys. Welcome to WordCast.
Okay, so the next topic is about Google. In fact, the next few topics are.
Is it about Google?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Specifically Google and China.
Okay.
So,
Google and China.
So we talked before.
Is Google branding Bing as Google in China?
No.
Oh, okay.
So we've talked before about Google and the search engine that they've been working on for China, the pre-censored search engine. And that's caused a lot of backlash already. But today, things kind of escalated in that
Yeah,
end.
they did.
So it started out today with a group of over 200 employees coming together and publishing a letter calling for Google to drop Dragonfly, which is the censored search engine. And then from there, Google employees in the US, Hong Kong, I think like Germany, France, like 5 or 6 countries, all did a massive like company-wide walkout.
Interesting.
Which we saw a walkout recently with some of the sexual harassment and sexual abuse scandals going on at Google and Google's poor response to them. And Google made
and then there was also
changes.
the military contracts that
Yes.
people were really mad about,
Yeah.
employees were really mad about. I actually think that was the one that was maybe a little less justifiable than these other two, and I think this one here is like...
So with the military one, for one though, we didn't see as big a scale of pushback.
No, we didn't. That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Because I mean, I think at that point it's revenue for Google, and
But Google's also made a point before of like canceling or selling projects for this, and so when you're an employee looking to go to a job,
that's true. Yeah, see,
and you go to
there.
somewhere like that because of this, and then you get forced onto a project
Yeah.
like that, that's where a lot of that pushback comes from. It's not like Google's saying, hey, if you're comfortable with this, come work on this. It's we don't care, just do it because you're our employee, and that's how companies work.
That's how companies work.
But when you went to that company specifically for that, which a lot of people, especially the longer term employees, really liked the whole don't be evil, and also just like a lot of the background stuff pertaining to that Google did. And so
I was going to say, like, don't be evil. They dropped don't be evil. Sexual harassment, government military contracts, censored search engines.
Yeah.
Like, what's going to happen next, Google? What are you guys going to do
Yeah.
next? A crappy Pixel launch? Oh, wait, that already happened.
Yeah. And so, I mean, that's really what this whole thing comes down to is, employees are kind of fed up. They literally were going out and saying today that they no longer feel the company puts the value of people over profit.
No, they don't.
Yeah. And so that's been causing a big issue. Amnesty International and Google staff also partnered up to publish a petition requesting Google stop the project. They haven't published any numbers yet pertaining to the petition.
Okay.
But Amnesty International, I think they usually wait until they hit certain milestones and then say it.
Okay.
Rather than just having it
Rather than
live.
change.org.
Yeah. And so, this has been a really big deal. We're gonna have to wait and see if we get a response. I'm kind of thinking with this one we might not see Google back down because of the things that their CEO has been saying about this project.
Well, I mean, aside from that too, there's just so much money to be made in it. It's a big financial incentive for Google, and they can find other employees. If they have to.
Yeah.
And
I mean, the thing is, like, even if the CEO didn't want to do it, he would just be forced out and someone else would be installed to do it.
Yeah, that's true. And I mean, aside from that, I mean, they'll find employees in other countries that'll do it if American employees won't do it. And then you guys are just out of jobs, and so you can't be there to maybe help do a better job.
It's not like a military project or a space-based project where they have to have U.S. employees. This is a project for China. China doesn't care about what their employees do or how they're treated.
Yep. So it's lame, and I mean, I actually understand them being frustrated about this.
I think the only way that we're going to see anything happen with this is if we get, if a lot of people come forward and say they will not use Google services
Well, aside from that, the other thing, though, to think about is how bad is it that Google maybe is doing a censored search engine, right? Because if China says no search engine or censored search engine, wouldn't you rather have the Chinese citizens be able to at least find things on the internet?
But there's other search engines there. And the idea is that...
I mean, Google has been there or was there for a while, right?
And they backed out because of the censorship.
But my thing is, Google's not more powerful than China, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I mean,
they can't...
Normally in situations like this, it's like with Elon Musk being at... part of the advisory board for Trump, even though he's, the companies he's working on are very much different than Trump's preferred policies and pertaining to stuff. The idea there was having your foot in the door can give you some influence, but the thing is that China doesn't listen to influence of U.S. companies. They only listen to influence of Chinese companies.
And even then,
Yeah, even then,
They
they
don't care.
care more about the influence of them over their people than they do anything else. So it's
Yeah.
not like Google having their foot in the door here could realistically make an impact and help open up the internet there. And so that's where things come into play of employees being like, well, then why are we, spending our time making these products when we can make products better and give people more access in the rest of the world?
yeah, yeah.
They, Google
money.
used to be so much about building products that can be profitable while improving people's lives, and they're no longer about that from the way we've seen them
From what
slowly
we're
transition.
seeing, yeah, I mean they've been being more and more frustrating on this standpoint. Is they've been, I've talked about it in other podcasts with different projects that Google has done, like Google Wi-Fi and the Pixel launch and all
Yeah.
that, just kind of dropping everything. I feel like their products aren't as polished as they used to be,
Yeah.
and they're not doing as good of a job with. So far security and privacy seem to be
Yeah.
about the same, but everything else they just haven't been doing as good of a job on it. And I mean, I was always a big fan of Google for what I felt like they did for people.
Yeah.
Right? It was like providing the better product, the innovative product is what made you your money because of people being interested in it, right? That's one of the reasons, that's a big reason why a lot of people buy Teslas.
Yeah.
It's not just because they're nice cars, it's because they're into the ideology behind an electric car.
Yeah.
Right? And the same thing could be said about Google products in the past, like Gmail, like Google Drive, like we could use plethora of examples.
YouTube at the
Android, YouTube at the beginning, all that kind of stuff was to help better the internet, and people like that enough. Google has become giant because of it.
Yeah.
And I used to have no problem using every Google service because I felt like I could have a little bit of trust with them, unlike most giant companies. And now I feel like Google has dropped below Microsoft on that list, in my opinion. And this it adds to that.
Yeah. Yeah, so really right now it's just going to be a wait and see game. Who knows what the response will actually be on this front, but
Yeah.
it'll be an interesting next few days to see.
Yep.
So
Google's not above government, though. We'll talk a little more about that in a bit, won't we?
yeah.
Yeah. So, and there's a lot of money to be had in China.
Yep.
So that's one of the concerns there, and they think they can push ads or something. And AdWords is even another good example of just a good, genuine product that Google made that has been innovative and has helped it's been a driving force of what makes the internet of creators possible.
So yes, I wouldn't say as much as a lot of their other products, it is as universally good. I have a lot of problems with the basic form of AdWords as a product, because the AdWords, like the basic one, that's very easy to set up. While it's easy to set up, it is specifically designed to get as many clicks as possible, but not accurate targeted clicks.
Yes.
And so it causes a problem.
Are you talking about like AdWords Express?
Yes. that
Okay,
one.
okay, yeah. I don't like AdWords Express. I
And
agree.
so that's one of those things where it's like they are pretty much just setting it up so that people give them money.
Yes, so I manage Google AdWords coming from that standpoint.
And I
That's
used
part
to.
of what I do, and he used to. And I agree, because, doing it manually, there's so much you can fine-tune. It's great.
Yeah.
I love it. But what I meant by a driving force on the internet is like YouTube. And the creators on YouTube
Yeah.
wouldn't be possible without Google Ads. Right? Ads are what runs like 50% of the internet is run by ads. Without ads, you wouldn't have us. I mean, we like to do this, right? But
Yeah.
you wouldn't have creators like us that are doing this for a living. You wouldn't have tech news sites. You wouldn't have news sites in general that do this for a living because you have to get paid.
But I think that we could find other ad companies that aren't Google.
Oh yeah, I agree with that. We could.
We're even saying, look at like within the tech community, most of the ad money isn't coming from AdWords. It's coming from
direct sponsors,
yeah.
but that's changed over time. It didn't used to be that way as much.
yeah,
right?
but you also didn't get paid very much a long time ago. You relied on getting a ton of views to make.
That's true too.
to
And I
make-
mean,
It would take 100,000 monetizable views to get the same money as 1,000 currently.
Yes,
From
yes.
a good sponsor.
And now there's also Patreon and stuff. People get more
Yeah.
direct support than they used to, and so there's that plays a
Yeah.
factor in this.
I
but-
do think that I'll be very surprised if over the next, let's say, 2 decades, we don't see a shift away from ad based. I think that people are slowly going to be more willing to pay for things.
Yeah.
Because of the bad experiences that we've seen pop up more and more due to ads.
Yeah, and I think that's something Google has tried to combat with Chrome, and the better ads agency and all that kind of stuff. Is I do think that that's something that needs to be dealt with, because otherwise people are just going to move away from it, and they will figure out how to pay for things in other ways, whether it's direct or not. And I mean, some of that's just funny to think about. Is like, if you paid for your content direct, so there wasn't ads, so there didn't have to be ads, so then the products that those ads were for were cheaper because they didn't have an ad budget. Then you could buy the products and afford the content you want, right?
Yeah.
It's a weird economics thing, right? And of course, being a Google AdWords manager, I hope ads don't die, but
I mean, I don't think search ads will, so much as I think things like ads on websites, especially for news. I think that's the biggest one that needs to go away, is news-based ads.
Yeah.
Because then you reach the point where we are at now, where clicks are all that matter. It's no longer quality things that make people want to pay you money to stick around and come back and keep reading your content.
Yeah, that's true. And so there's not an incentive to do quality content. There's an incentive to do clickbait. Yeah, and that's something that's frustrating, and that's overflowed into YouTube and the like too. Is it's fairly
and very few companies do. I know BuzzFeed gets a lot of crap, and rightfully so. But one of the things that BuzzFeed has done very well with their business is they've started BuzzFeed News, which is an attempt at a serious news network.
Yeah.
And what they've said is that they don't really care how many views, how many clicks that gets, because they can make that profit from regular BuzzFeed and BuzzFeed's YouTube content and use that to subsidize the BuzzFeed News Network. And they've hired really quality, like Pulitzer Prize winning journalists. To run that.
It's interesting. So it's just hard to make the name.
That's one weird way to do it. But they're the only ones I've seen that have taken that step of having an ad-based business support a more serious business and being willing to lose money.
It's interesting. It's an interesting direction. Of course, the name doesn't really help them.
No.
But I guess now we can move into some Android drama with Google.
Yeah, so you guys may have or may not have heard of Cheetah Mobile. They make some pretty highly downloaded apps.
Cheetah as in one word, not cheat mobile.
So they make some pretty highly downloaded apps. Security Browser, CM Browser, Battery Doctor, CM File Manager, a bunch of weird things like that. I know that CM File Manager used to go under a different name and it was bought out. It used to be a really popular file manager, and Cheetah Mobile bought them out. And so they've been a pretty big name, and they've had a lot of accusations against them as far as overly advertising, as far as pulling a lot of data, and being that they're a Chinese company, they don't really have the say to try and fight back if the Chinese government wants to gather that data.
Yeah.
And so there's been a lot of controversy there. But now there's something new that's popped up that's become a really big deal really fast. Essentially, it's come out that Cheetah Mobile has reportedly been essentially injecting code in. So let me take a step back for a second. On Android especially, there is advertisements for applications within an app. So let's say you're on a game.
Yeah.
And that game may offer you tokens to go download and install and activate another app. Pretty common, because instead of you paying for those tokens, you can open the app. The app developers get paid. They give you some of that in the form of tokens.
Yeah.
Well, what Cheetah Mobile's been doing is essentially making it look like they were the ones that sent you to that app, so they get paid even when they weren't, as long as you have the app installed. It's been injecting, essentially, a click injection.
Interesting. I don't like that.
No.
That's not okay.
So you may be playing...
That's against terms of service, too, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I would assume so.
You may be playing a game, and you're like, I'll download this. It'll support the developer and give me something. And then instead of it supporting the developer, it goes to this Chinese company.
That's sketch.
Yeah, very.
And sucky.
Yeah, very. It screws over the people, that are running the games and other apps that are trying to make money. It screws over the people offering up the money to try and spread their app. On a number of different ways. It makes it harder for them to see where their app is actually being downloaded from, to gather info. It makes it harder to pay out correctly. It's just a really big deal, and especially since Google has been advertising Cheetah Mobile as one of their like Android success stories.
They're successful because they're cheating.
Yes.
Cheetah Mobile, cheating mobile, cheating mobile.
Yeah.
That's
so,
what their name is now.
Yeah, this came out earlier today. More info came out as the day went on, and then Google pulled them from their Android success stories page.
Well, okay, so
But they haven't banned them from Android yet.
So good for pulling it, but you should ban them because
Yes.
this is against terms of service. Although they're probably investigating, so
Yeah.
I would think. I hope that they ban them for
Yeah.
this. This is the you should be done for. This is not acceptable. And
Yeah.
it's just unfortunate that it's like
I highly doubt it because of how much money Google will have made from them and will continue to make from them.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. They should do it, but they probably won't.
That's the case with YouTube.
And you see,
that's
these are
with Google. That's the case with Facebook. Like everything is pretty much if you
Yeah.
make the company on the platform you operate on enough money, they will lightly punish you. Whereas if you are a small creator and you don't make them a lot of money, harsh punishments fast.
The Paul brothers.
Yes,
As a perfect example of this sort of stuff. And these are situations where I hate to sound. I know some people are going to yell, and you can go ahead and yell. But these are situations where I don't feel like Apple would do the same thing, would make the same move, right? I would feel like this would be something if this came out in the App Store today, they would be pulled completely from the App Store while Apple looks into it in more detail. And those are situations where, like, I'm not a big Apple guy, right? I don't like a lot of their products, but some of the things they do in terms of policy, privacy, regulation within their company are things that I actually appreciate.
Yeah. And yes, I mean, speaking of Apple, one thing is that actually might change in a way with Apple. There's a Supreme Court case going on that if Apple loses, it doesn't actually mean they lost the core issue. It just means that they then can get sued over this issue. It's a really complex thing. But essentially, someone is suing Apple because they think that Apple running their own app store on their own phones and only their phones is a monopoly issue.
Okay.
And so they're
I can see their argument, but I don't agree.
And so they're suing, saying that they overpaid for apps because there's no competition to offer less than the 30% charge Apple charges, which is an odd argument to make because Apple can just say Google charges 30%, Steam charges 30%, everyone charges 30%.
That's a fairly
That's
normal
the standard
thing.
Practice number.
I don't think I disagree with that.
If it was something like Google where they're putting themselves on other platforms, that's one
a little
thing.
different.
But Apple's not a platform; they're their own product.
Yeah, and
It's
the
not
apps
like
are
on
made
Safari.
for their products.
Yeah, it's not like on Mac, not Safari. On Mac, they only allow Mac Store apps.
Or they only allow like Safari.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas it's like no, you can do whatever you want, and it's just the way of getting the apps for it, and so 30% is pretty standard, and I don't even know it's hard to make the argument of no competition either because a lot of apps are cross-platform. And
Most
so you could say, you could say that there's competition because you could pick another freaking phone and then use the... Okay, is the app cheaper on Google Play?
No.
A lot of times they're not.
Yeah.
That's very rare. Sometimes there are. I ran across it once in a while, but oftentimes that's because they just put it on Google Play. They're trying to increase popularity.
Or because on Apple they built out a tablet app, whereas it's not a good tablet experience on Android because
So they just don't do
because
it.
Android's bad for tablets.
Yeah.
And so they spent more money on development on the Apple version.
That's an example too, yeah. Or just in general, they have spent more money on development for the Apple one. Maybe it's more polished, whatever it may be. But in general, you can look at it and be like, okay, it's the same price there, it's the same price here. So you could pick another phone, and there's competition in the phone market, so you can make the argument that there's competition on both ends.
Yeah.
I don't think Apple's going to lose this case. I wouldn't think so.
No, I think they might lose the case that would allow them to be sued, which would create a whole Pandora's box for a number of companies because it would be overturning a big precedent that would allow them to get sued by developers and consumers.
Yeah.
Whereas currently they can only be sued by developers.
Right.
It's a big,
it's a mess.
weird case.
It's a mess.
But back to the Android and Cheetah Mobile thing.
Yeah.
So Cheetah Mobile's defense is that they're essentially blaming the SDK.
And I just don't understand how you could possibly use that as I just don't even It's like you pick up hedge trimmers and you cut somebody else's hedge and you say it's the hedge trimmer's fault. It's the tool. It didn't do the bad thing. You used the tool to do the bad thing.
Yeah, and if there was a bug that was causing the SDK to, invalidly grab the essentially referral,
yeah,
this wouldn't be just a Cheetah Mobile thing.
No, it wouldn't be. And Google would be trying to fix it.
It would have been found out and fixed a long time ago.
I would assume so.
Yeah.
And if it hadn't, I mean, bad on you, Google, for not catching it. So, I mean, if it really is the SDK, then, okay, Cheetah Mobile didn't do anything wrong. But I really doubt that. Yeah, like, that's to the point of, like, I'm not a betting man, and I would be willing to bet money that it's not that.
I feel like if it was the SDK, legitimately, Google wouldn't have pulled them from the Android success story.
No, I don't think so.
So.
And in some more Google drama, this is a potentially big one.
Yes, so Google has been accused of GDPR privacy violations by 7 different countries in the EU. So specifically, they're being accused of deceptive practices around location tracking. We've discussed this before, but essentially the specific complaints here are that, for one, tracking is not really properly detailed for consumers. They aren't getting a full picture of what is tracked and when they're being tracked. And then also not giving users a real choice. Now, the real choice thing is, I think, the important part here, because I didn't even really know this. But the big concern is that the actual location services option, if you turn that off, doesn't turn it off.
No, yeah.
Which I knew to an extent.
It kind of turns it off for other apps, right? That's one thing.
So yes and no. So essentially, from my understanding of what it did before was that in Google Apps, when location was not active, so like if you weren't in Google Maps or something, it wouldn't pull your location. Because, things like Google Opinion Rewards don't work if you turn off location.
Yeah, right.
But apparently, what happens is if you still have web and app activity in general being tracked on your phone, it still tracks your location. Web and app activity does not say location.
Yeah, right.
So having to make users turn off that option, which is on by default, is the big concern here. Because if you turn off every actual setting that says location in the name of the setting, you're not turning this off.
No. Yeah, I don't know.
It's not like this is...
So I do want to ask first, do you think that the EU gave enough time for companies to actually really properly... Because sometimes I feel like...
They had years before this went into effect.
GDPR?
Yes.
Wasn't it just confirmed?
No, it was just initiated.
No, I know it was just initiated, but wasn't it confirmed early this year? Really? It was that far back that did they have a specific date and stuff set at that point?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I know people who work on essentially like terms and conditions and stuff for clients. They do like more, that type of stuff.
Yeah.
And they said that they had people, they told years ago, like, hey, you need to get this stuff in order.
Mm-hmm.
But nope, last minute, the month of, I think it was in May of this year when it was going into effect.
Is when people started
when everyone rushed to do it, and so for smaller companies that waited, there was a backlog.
Okay, I see.
But no, they had, I believe it was 2016 that the bill passed.
Okay.
So, no, I don't feel like any, especially large company, no large company has an excuse. It's not like this issue is specifically about like an old version of Android that Google can't update because it's not a Google OS.
Yeah, right.
This is about like current Android.
Oh boy.
So, yeah, they could be looking at millions or billions in fines because GDPR violations can be a 4% of global revenue fine.
Yeah, which is significant. Like sometimes I almost feel like that number's a little overkill. I don't know. That's a lot, but I mean, at least it's enough to do something.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is that we've seen so often that
companies
fines are so insignificant. Yeah. If you can, make $5 billion and be charged $5 million,
why do you care?
You are incentivized to break that law.
Yes, it's true.
That's the point of this is they want to make it cost such a high cost that if you're going to do this in Europe, it's not going to make Europe that profitable or profitable at all.
Right.
That's the intent behind it. Is there is no making a profit while breaking and selling this privacy data.
Yeah.
So.
Well, Google, you're dealing with a lot right now, and it makes me kind of sad.
Yeah, get your shit together.
Yeah. About time. Unfortunate Facebook drama.
Okay, so in more drama news,
Wait, so is this news about drama or news about Facebook? Now I'm confused.
little of both.
Okay, a little of both.
Yeah. So we have a couple steps to this story. The big thing from a couple of days ago, again, we're recording this on the 27th, so this, I think, came out like Saturday or Sunday,
Okay.
is UK Parliament seized...
Wait, like Parliament from Serenity?
No.
Oh.
UK Parliament seized internal Facebook documents relating to privacy and data. Now, I was kind of interested in how they managed to do this, because Facebook is not a not a UK company.
No, yeah.
So they can only seize documents that are in the UK.
Yeah.
Well, it turns out what they did was they seized documents from an app developer. Specifically, there was this founder of a company called 643. He was visiting the UK, and this guy, the reason he has internal Facebook documents is he had sued Facebook previously.
Okay.
Because he had an app that was back in like 2014
Okay.
that would allow you to essentially pick a Facebook contact and it would search for bikini pictures of them. And when Facebook shut down the API that Cambridge Analytica was using to gather data, this app stopped working.
And so he sued them.
And so he sued them for lost revenue because they broke his app.
I mean, I guess the app's not illegal.
But it's still
But that's
Facebook's
still-
API, and they can do whatever they want.
Okay, come on though. Alright, so first off, you can't sue over that at all. But second off, dude, what kind of app, like, and how many people used that?
People are thirsty.
That's just unacceptable in
Yeah.
my opinion. That's gross.
Yeah. So yes, when the leader of 643 had sued Facebook, during the discovery process, they got evidence, and some of that evidence included some internal documents. These internal documents happen to have information about Facebook's knowledge about certain privacy issues. And so that's why the UK wanted to seize them. So he was in the country, so the UK issued the orders to seize the documents from him. He initially resisted, the UK pressured harder, and then threatened jail time. He gave them up.
So when I was first reading through this, because this is kind of like, I haven't really looked into this much, right? Is I was like, yeah, I feel kind of bad for the founder of 643, but I just don't. I was thinking at first, I'm like, you went after an app developer to go out, like, that's kind of mean. I feel like, no, not at all. No, no.
Yeah. When I first read about what the app did, I was just like,
why did you?
Yeah.
I just don't understand people's incentive for things sometimes. It's just like, I just don't. Why do you have to be a creep about it?
And if you're going to be a creep, just click on their profile.
I mean, okay, so there you go. You have a good point there. But aside from that, why do you gotta be a creep about this? There are other ways to satisfy that part of your brain. It doesn't need to be being a frickin' creepy pervert using stuff to find bikini pictures of your Facebook friends.
Yeah.
Like, that's just like, I don't understand.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay.
So, yeah, this comes after like a long fought battle between Facebook and the UK and EU to get, people with actual information to come testify, and not just testify and say, we won't say anything, but like actually give full information.
Yeah, right.
And these documents came, essentially we found out that the UK got these right before a very interesting event. So today, there was a hearing between Richard Allen, which is the VP of Public Policy at Facebook, and members of Parliament.
A hearing?
Yes.
Oh.
And members of Parliament from Argentina, Belgium, Brazil, Canada, France, Ireland, Latvia, Singapore, and the UK.
So a small amount of countries.
Yeah, a very, insane international community. Very different countries. It's not like it's all European or all Western, northern countries. Everywhere. And this hearing was about privacy issues on Facebook. Well, one of the biggest revelations from this is that we learned that Facebook knew that people in Russia were pulling data from their site as early as 2014. So we knew that they had done things to gather data and potentially meddle in the 2016 US election. It's confirmed by every intelligence agency that's looked into it.
It's like, of course they are.
Yeah,
like,
but we didn't know to this extent and at this time. This, a lot of people suspected, was like it started in 2016 when the elections were really ramping up thing.
But this is like way earlier. And I mean, of course, it wouldn't surprise me to find out about plenty of other countries doing it to each other and to us as well.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I just feel like this whole fiasco of just like, I think cybersecurity on a national basis, not just in our country, needs to be so much better than it currently is.
You mean you shouldn't employ a guy to be director of national security that doesn't know what a flash drive is and doesn't use a computer? Instead, he just reads documents and says that was correct?
Yep.
Japan did that.
Japan did that one, which is really weird coming from that country.
I know.
I didn't understand that one at all. But I mean, better cybersecurity is a hugely important thing, and I'm kind of disappointed in the fact that companies have better cybersecurity than governments.
Yeah. So to get back into this part, though, so what we found out today, according to a member of British Parliament, which is important because they were the ones that got the documents, an internal email showed that a Facebook engineer discovered that somebody with a Russian IP address was gathering, I don't know why I wrote 3 billion data points per day.
So what is a data point? Is that a bit?
So, so your name is a data point, your location is a data point, a picture is a data point, where you posted that picture is a data point. Your employer is a data point.
I was just curious how they identified that, right? Because that could be used more broad if they wanted. But.
No, so it's each individual like line item of something about you is considered a data point.
Okay.
And so they were gathering 3 billion per day using a what sounds like a compromised Pinterest API in order to gather data. And normally, APIs that can give out information are throttled to some level.
Yeah.
But you can't really throttle a site as big as Pinterest very well.
That's true.
Because with Pinterest, I mean, they get crawled by Google, which is, I don't know how or why Pinterest allows that, or they shouldn't allow it in my opinion, because Pinterest requires you to log in.
Yeah.
So they allow Google to crawl their data,
but
not you to look at that data.
Yeah, it's a little weird. Weird. Google crawls everything, though. Let's just be honest.
Yeah.
Google is like that. Really, you could just rename them crawler.
Yeah, and so, so this data, or this API couldn't really be throttled because it was for Pinterest specifically, and they're so large, and so Russia took advantage of that to gather tons of data. We don't know how long this lasted. We just know it started in 2014, and they were gathering a lot. So they could theoretically, on every user that has a public profile, have their name, their employer, any public locations they posted pictures from that have metadata, all kinds of information. So if you want to do targeted cybersecurity attacks, that's how you do it.
Are you telling me that consumers shouldn't use Facebook?
Yes.
Is that the conclusion that we have come to today?
So
because we came to that conclusion in the last podcast and the one before and the one before.
So let me say something. I think that consumers should and will eventually, probably not until our generation is adult, like more adult.
Mm-hmm.
Our generation and every future generation should be much more considerate about public social media profiles in general.
Yeah.
I don't think that most people should have a public profile unless you are going for a public persona.
Yeah.
And are willing to compromise your privacy for that, knowing full well you will probably never get it back.
Of course, it'd be nice if companies could figure out their frickin' security too.
Yes.
But I mean, some of that actually just comes straight down to, the cybersecurity field is low on employees.
But when it comes to something like this, I mean, for all we know, it could be a Russian infiltrated Pinterest by getting a job there and gave the API key to someone
that's
in
true
Russia.
too. There's
so many different things. It's not like this was necessarily somebody
just
hacked in.
Yeah, right.
And so, this is just a big mess. It's going to be interesting to see this develop. Now, the Facebook VP that was being questioned pretty much refused to respond to this at all. Normally, he was like, trying to like sideline questions and things like that.
Right.
This was like a flat out just like, I don't want to talk about it. In a very weird way for the rest of the hearing. So, something's going on there. I think they realize that if this is fully proven, they are in deep shit.
Yeah, like that's a big deal. That's not.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but they always have been in deep shit. Like Facebook is just,
This is very easily, I think, the thing that could trigger
like,
huge regulation on the industry.
Yeah, it
in
could.
Europe, in the US,
it's almost like unfortunate that we have to come to that point, right? Where it's like Facebook is such a monopoly that when you say like, oh, we have to regulate this industry, it's like, no, that's just Facebook. There's not,
but
right?
Facebook's the biggest one being talked about, but I mean, Twitter has some of these same issues.
I mean, Twitter's done some of it, yeah, but I mean, there are some that come down to genuine mistake, right? And there are others that come down to negligence and lack of being willing to spend the money to have good cybersecurity professionals. And again, though, some of that comes down to just being a lack of employees that are like professionals in the field, right?
Now, with something like this specific issue, regulation of this would probably not be on social media specifically. It would actually probably be on tech as a whole and be about something similar to what GDPR has about reporting exploits and reporting known data loss, things like that.
Right.
Realistically, that's probably something we should have in the U.S. is a regulation that requires, at some time frame, giving that information to the government or making it public or both.
Yeah.
Because we shouldn't be finding out almost 5 years later that Facebook had theoretically, the vast majority of their consumers' data gathered by the Russian government.
Yeah.
When they knew about it in 2014.
Well, we don't even know for sure it was the government. Could have literally just been.
True.
And I'm not saying, obviously with that kind of data, it wouldn't have been an individual, but...
Yeah, and I mean, Russia's kind of like China, where when the Russian government wants it, they get it. So even if it wasn't the government initiating it, they have it.
Yeah.
So.
And this is... It's unfortunate, and a lot of it, feels like an attack towards America, too.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of this kind of stuff that's happening, And I mean, Facebook's one of the biggest vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
I feel like it's weird to say that, but I feel like in this country and other countries too, I feel like Facebook is like a huge vulnerability for that country to have. And so I mean,
Facebook is a company that has more influence than most countries.
Yes.
And no real way other than through other governments to hold them accountable.
Yeah. That's a very good way to put it. And so they're there as this whole in every country where you can just gather whatever the hell you want and do whatever the hell you want.
Yeah.
And it's like everybody is part of two countries. Everybody's part of whatever the country their geographical country and their internet country.
Yeah.
And their internet country is Facebook.
Yeah. I mean, we saw it with things like what happened in South America involving the Rohingya that were the essentially massacre of the Rohingya people.
Oh yeah.
Where a lot of the hate that started that process that led to that started on Facebook, and Facebook had tons of reports of hate speech and things like that, but they didn't have someone that knew the right dialect, so they just ignored it.
Yep. Because why spend money when you can hoard it all?
Yeah.
It's just, this is the kind of stuff where they are like, I feel like they're slowly climbing to the top of my list of worst company in the world. Right up there with Verizon and like Comcast. And it's what do you do, I guess, right?
Yep.
What do you do? Complain about it, delete Facebook? I mean, I think you should delete Facebook. There are other options. Just use the other options. Use Twitter at the bare minimum, but there's other more rare options too. There was G+, there's MeWe, there's another one that I think is gone now. I can't remember the name of it though. A lot of them fail because Facebook either buys them or copies them. Snapchat's lucky to not be dead because they got offered to be bought. And they said no, and then Facebook copied them. Yep. They're lucky that they didn't die.
They are getting there though.
They're having troubles. Yeah.
Ooh, huge troubles.
Yeah, which is like not surprising because Instagram can do it. And Instagram integrates with Facebook, and when another social media app integrates with Facebook, it makes it easier on consumers. Consumers are more likely to be like, oh, okay, I'll use that.
Yeah.
Kind of a sad world.
Yep.
So, we're jumping into some of the smaller topics now. These are kind of not quite the tiny news yet. We're at just normal news now, guys. But we got some interesting things going on here, including radical LEDs. I did not say left. I said LEDs.
And Martian landers.
And Martian, you know, I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Just something about that. Just Martian lander. I like that.
Yeah.
There's something about that. It just feels good. I don't know. That triggered me in a good way. Anyway.
Yeah. So starting out the regular news topics, some kind of sad news. YouTube had already ended the annotation program for their videos.
Yeah.
Back
You
in
could
2017.
still add them, but it wasn't easy. Right?
Yeah,
You
for
could
a
go.
while.
There was like
You
a.
can't now.
Yeah. There was a tab you could for a while where you could.
Because you had to be able to edit them.
Yes.
So,
Right.
But they technically discontinued them in 2017.
And they were gone from mobile. They haven't been on mobile.
They've never been on mobile. That's why they switched to the current process.
Yeah. They couldn't make it work very easily on mobile,
Yeah.
and it'd be ugly as hell.
Oh yeah. But unfortunately, as of January 2019, YouTube will no longer show annotations at all on the videos that have already had them.
So they're just deleting them?
Yes. Yeah.
Sucks for everybody that's used them for corrections.
Yeah, exactly. It's not a big deal for most videos even that had them, but the ones that use them for corrections, especially on things like educational content.
That sucks.
Yeah.
You know, all that really points to, though, is you as content creators put the corrections as text in your editing program. That way it can't be removed.
The thing is, a lot of people will find, like,
after publishing,
and if you're not a big studio, you can't really, like, pull the video and re-upload it and expect the same amount of views. People might see the same video and ignore it, rather than, like, what's going on.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different issues there, and so, you know, people like the Data Hoarder subreddit are trying to figure out ways that they can easily pull annotations.
But
seeing if they can archive
without
videos.
Pulling the whole video, or the video too,
seeing if
just
there's
with
a way they
annotations?
can archive the video with the annotation being overlaid.
Okay.
Without, like, screen recording everything.
Yeah, which that's not a fun thing to do.
So they're trying to figure out ways that they can preserve these videos with the corrections to share going forward.
Okay.
We'll see if any progress gets made there, but it's just kind of a bummer.
Yeah.
So.
I've used them like once, and then I stopped. So, use a little I instead. But how do people make corrections at this point then?
You can't. Delete the video and re-upload it.
That's the only option.
Yep.
They really need to add like a text overlay thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like just a basic text overlay, not an annotation, but just text overlay. White text.
Or you could make Google spend more money on deleting and re-uploading videos.
That's kind of a funny thought. More bandwidth. It's kind of sad.
Yep.
But now we're going to get into radical LEDs. So, it's almost like one word, radical LED.
No.
Oh, is that not what it is?
No.
Oh, okay. So these are interesting and exciting.
Yeah, I think so.
I hope we see this. I hope we see this really become a thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know more about it than me, though, so I'll let you pick up the fire with your bare hands.
Okay. I like doing that.
I had to come up with something, guys. I'm sorry.
Okay. So essentially what we're looking at here is OLED, but made differently. They're being made using radicals, which are semiconducting molecules that have unpaired electrons. Essentially, the idea is that these can be used to make much more highly efficient OLEDs.
Which are already really efficient.
Yes. So essentially what would happen here is, and currently they only have it working with red, the red, green, blue part of the process. But with deep red, they can get near 100% efficiency while being brighter.
That's a lot.
They can use less power and give you a brighter LED.
That's efficient.
Yes, highly
efficient.
Yeah.
Highly, almost perfect efficiency.
Yeah.
I have to say it in like a bunch of different ways so people understand what 100% means.
But it's near 100%.
Ah, crap, you got me there. So what do you call it then?
Almost perfect.
Or you could call it efficient-ish.
No, efficient-ish would be like 60-70%.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So the idea is, first off, they didn't even realize or like think that this would actually work.
Which
is they were pretty sure this wasn't possible.
Those are the best discoveries.
And then it worked, yeah.
Yeah.
But if they can get this working with green and blue LEDs, then this tech could be monumental in phones, TVs, especially phones and laptops, I think.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting. You know, one of the things I want to see tested with this is how burn-in would be affected.
Yeah, now that's another question I have there. Yeah, because burn-in is a big issue, and I feel like TVs have a good like OLED TVs. You don't have to worry about it because those TVs are programmed with their OS in a way where you can't burn in the screen.
Yeah, if you're not watching something like CNN 24/7, it's really a non-issue. And I say that specifically because Artings, in their testing, one of their TVs is CNN 24/7. And they are experiencing some burn-in with that after a very long period of time.
Yes.
But they aren't really experiencing that same thing in pretty much any other TV they have running.
And it makes sense that that's happening. Kind of duh. That happens with Android apps like Android Auto being on the screen 24/7. I don't understand why Google hasn't dealt with that because there's so many people on the internet complaining about that because the Pixel's also OLED. But anyway, I guess they don't care yet because Google doesn't care anymore. But, I want to get an OLED TV next year, right? And burn-in was one of the factors that I considered. But generally, it's a non-issue on TVs. Although, longevity is another question that comes into play for TVs, whereas for phones, which is probably where this would be most useful and tested first, just as OLEDs were popular in phones first, you have less of an issue with longevity because a lot of times phones, if you're a user that keeps your phone for 6 years, you probably don't have the screen on enough to kill it very quick.
Yeah.
So
for mobile, this would be really helpful for just better battery life. And then for TVs, this could be helpful for hitting the 1000-nit brightness of HDR.
And for phones, I was thinking because sunlight. You get in the sunlight, the phone can get brighter. If you can get an extra 50 nits out of a phone or 100 nits out of a phone for the same battery usage, that'd be wonderful for outdoor use or car use. That'd be great. And then for TVs, of course, helping with the HDR. Although I think the 4K HDR OLEDs have been hitting 1000 nits, though, haven't they?
Yeah, but with this, they could hit it easier.
Because right now it's a little bit of a strain, so to speak.
Yeah.
I can't wait to have an OLED TV, though. That's going to be fun.
Yeah. This is pretty interesting and exciting. Hopefully we see some new developments over the next year or two.
I hope so, too.
Yeah.
I think it's cool. I think it's very cool. It's radical, bro. So, Mars is in sight, guys.
And we're not talking insight like in Captain America, Winter Soldier.
Yeah, right.
With the helicarriers that attack good people.
And we're also not talking insight like physically insight, because you can see Mars, but it's kind of hard. We're talking about the InSight lander.
Yes.
Not the lander. The lander's not in sight. It's not in sight anymore. It was in sight. But it's the InSight lander.
Well, it has a camera, and you can see some of it from the camera, so it's in sight of itself.
So in that case, it's in sight of itself, and Mars is also in sight then.
Yes.
So Mars is in sight, guys, going back to the original point.
This is a very punny episode.
I hate the term punny, because no matter what, it is the easiest, most cop-out pun, but it's still a great pun every freaking time.
Yeah.
I just, So Mars is in sight. All right.
Yeah, so this lander, it's not a rover, it's not meant to move, it landed in one spot, that's where it's staying.
And it's going to drill all the way through Mars so we can blow up the planet?
No.
Oh.
So this was launched about 6.5 months ago. It's been traveling through space ever since.
That's a pretty quick travel time to Mars, though. Isn't that one of the quickest we've done for something to land there, right? I know we've had stuff go in that area.
So I think it's one of the quickest we've done, but it's by no means even near what we could do. Normally launches are roughly 9 months, just to conserve on fuel.
Okay.
But you can, I know Elon Musk was saying, with the idea of even for the very large rockets that would have people in them, like a lot of them, you could do 3 to 4 months if you do it right.
Okay.
You can do it faster.
And faster is important when we eventually want to take people there, of course,
yes.
Because you have a limited amount of food and stuff.
And even beyond that, more time in space is more time for things to go wrong.
That's true too. So if you can just get there.
Yeah.
You
So what's cool with this though, the landing, the whole process was crazy. So essentially what they have to do, because they were going so fast when they got there, I think it was 12,000 miles an hour, something like that, is they had to go from that to landed in 7 minutes. It's known as 7 minutes of terror. because there is no manually being able to do anything. You have to.
You just have to like. I hope it works.
So the landing site's important because if you land and you happen to land on a rock and the thing tips over, it might not be able to open up its solar array and it wouldn't work.
Yep.
So many different things could go wrong. So essentially, what they do, they start out by just using the heat shield for the initial slowdown, and it gets up to I think it was like 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit.
Okay.
Something crazy like that. And then...
Why not 2,500 degrees Kelvin?
Because no.
Okay.
And then as it got closer, it was able to deploy its supersonic parachute.
I wonder what that's made of. That's something I want to know more about. Like, what material is handling that?
Yeah.
You know?
And the thing with parachutes on Mars, so there's enough of an atmosphere for it to heat up a lot. Not enough of an atmosphere to use a parachute to stop it or slow it down enough for it to safely land.
Yeah.
Even with this is just helping it slow down a bit faster.
Okay.
And then after they deploy the chute, they use onboard radar to scan the ground area, and then they have rockets on the lander. And so they use the radar to control the rockets to adjust things for how it needs to land.
Okay. That's cool.
And
now,
all of that's done with a 4-minute delay to NASA.
Yeah, so it's all pre-programmed.
Yes.
Right? So when you think about that, we have a robot that we pushed to space, and its job is to land on Mars, and on its way down, it's looking and deciding where the hell it's going to land.
Yes.
That's kind of amazing to think about.
Yeah. And then also, along with the launch of this, following it was 2 small CubeSats, about the size of a briefcase.
Okay.
And these satellites were meant to help gather data of the landing, because normally we don't get data even remotely close to that time.
Yeah.
It takes much longer than 4 minutes normally because it has to relay to its satellite around Mars,
Yeah.
which doesn't always happen right away.
Yeah, right.
So they sent 2 CubeSats following it to gather data during the landing and send that back to Earth. And then gather the pictures that were being sent and send that back to Earth. Now the CubeSats kept going. I think they just essentially trashed them.
Okay.
They didn't put them into orbit because that's even more complicated without engines.
I love that we have this, though, where we have something that landed itself on Mars and can relay info to our Mars satellite back to us.
Something briefcase-sized in space to send data back to Earth.
Yeah, well, and now with the other satellite.
Yes.
How many satellites? Is it just one that we have there right now, or do we have a couple?
I think we have a few, but there's one that's being used for this.
That's just mind-blowing that we have a satellite on another planet so that we can put shit on that planet and communicate with us.
Yeah.
Rather than having to make each individual device attempt to communicate with us.
Yeah. And then from there, they showed us the first picture, which we'll put up on screen here.
Yeah.
And it was with the dust cover on. And then today we got another picture of the first picture taken from the camera on board without the dust cover. The area is flat and boring. It's kind of an uneventful area. It's just a flat part of Mars because, planets are flat. And that was intentionally chosen because of the type of mission they're doing. They don't need to gather data on the terrain or the surface, so they wanted the most boring, easy-to-land-on thing possible. This is gathering data on the inside of Mars.
Yes, and that's what makes this special, because we've already, with our Mars rover, gathered a lot of the surface material.
And we're sending another rover in 2020 or 2022.
Yeah, I think it's 22.
To a new area that we haven't had a rover go to.
That's where we'll find the aliens.
Yes. And so what this is doing is, now that it's landed, and I think by now it's deployed its solar arrays, is it's prepping to essentially place a giant metal rod and hammer the top of the rod slowly into the Martian surface. Now, we have to kind of get lucky here in that hoping that there is no rock along the process.
Oh, yeah.
Because this thing is not strong enough to do much more than dig through soil.
Okay.
But if it can get all the way down, then the intent of this mission is to detect Mars quakes, which they do happen.
Yeah,
They're just not super common because they don't have a big tectonic plate system like we do.
Yeah.
And
don't worry, when we nuke Mars to jumpstart and terraform it, then it'll have big tectonic plates.
And so the intent is to use the data from those Mars quakes to get an idea for the makeup of the surface, or the internals of Mars.
Which is
They can
awesome.
use that because we know enough about motion and sound waves through ground, that they can get a good idea of the makeup of the core, the mantle, the crust of Mars by using the vibrations of the planet when it quakes.
And eventually we could, this kind of data is all part of data that's going to eventually help us put people there.
Yes, and on top of that, it gives us a better understanding of planet creation in general, which helps us understand our planet better.
Now, if you want to send a Snapchat to somebody on Mars, we know it takes approximately 4 minutes.
Yes, to even get the red notification, it would take 8, though.
That's true. That's a good point. That's a good point. But 8 minutes is a short time to wait to Snapchat your friend on Mars.
And it gets longer.
Yeah, well, but of course that's a picture. That's a decent amount of data, right? So a text. It's same time frame because it's distance, right?
Yes, yeah.
But
4 minutes is the total time it takes light to travel.
Yes, and there's not really a good way to make that faster.
Not yet.
Not yet. Eventually, we will have light acceleration.
Now, what's really cool about the sensor on this? It's extremely sensitive. So sensitive they had to put a cover over it and also place it as far away from the rest of the equipment as possible. Because, and this is something they didn't realize with how sensitive it was until they tested the equipment in Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
It's so sensitive that in Colorado...
Is this a seismic sensor? Is that what this is? Or is it some other equipment?
Yes, but it's far more sensitive than anything we've ever used before. It's down to, it can detect atoms shifting.
Which is incredible, because, to think of where we've come from with seismic activity sensors is back when Russia was testing Tsar right? Back then, we could measure its vibration on the Earth, its third pass around, right? And so, thinking how many years it's been since then, what we're capable of doing now is incredible.
In Colorado, they were able to detect waves from the Pacific Ocean crashing into the coast of California. That is how sensitive this was.
It's awesome.
Yeah. That's insane.
It's cool.
Yeah.
It's very cool. It's amazing what you can do with vibration. Don't ever say just don't ever like that again. That is no. And now...
Says the guy that has a subwoofer that vibrates his whole home.
Tiny news.
You're gonna get us banned from YouTube and Patreon.
For ASMR? So, we've got one tiny news subject here. Elgato released the Camlink 4K.
It's a Camlink, but 4K.
Cool. The Camlink's great. I don't have complaints about it, but it's not really for streamers. This is something that could be great for when we used to do live podcasts. Would have been awesome for us.
Because you can't. There's nowhere right now that lets you stream in 4K.
No, doesn't YouTube support it now? I think YouTube supports 4K streaming. I think, but it's not like you're gonna stream your whole it's
the webcam.
The webcam's not 4K, right? So
I don't know many people that are gonna buy a camera like this to stream in 4K of themselves.
In a corner, unless they were going to do full themselves, which, maybe it could be great for certain Twitch streamers that tend to have the game in the corner. But no, but of course, those are Twitch streamers, so it doesn't...
I feel like the more significant thing is 1080-60.
No, that's really nice, yes. And...
Webcam?
This is cool, 1080-60 for a webcam, or 4K for podcasts.
They have 1080-60 webcams.
So it's just buy a webcam. Yeah. Or you could buy a webcam, buy a controller that allows you to turn the USB webcam into HDMI, and then use the Camlink to capture that.
# quality loss, baby.
Woo! That's the right way to do it. That is the way to do it. Alright, well, just remember, folks, don't buy Google Wi-Fi.
Delete your Facebook.
Delete your Facebook.
Mars landers are cool, and LEDs are radical.
Mars is in sight. And LEDs are, radical LEDs.
Yeah.
So thank you everybody for watching. This was WordCast number 70-ish, because there was a 70 that wasn't published, but we'll have some cutouts from that.
So are we AMD right now? No. They released the 580.
Yeah. See, that's the problem. Now we'll have some cutouts from the other one, at least one. So you'll see a random cutout that won't make
Article
any sense.
13, which is very important.
Very important topic. So we have a big section about that. Well, you'll see a cutout about that. I'm going to try and do a channel update this weekend, maybe next weekend if I don't this weekend, and there'll be a lot of...
Land.
Oh yeah, not next weekend.
This
but
weekend or 2
hopefully
weeks
this
from
weekend
now.
or 2
Yeah.
weeks from now. Yeah, because I'm having a LAN party here, like I always do. So anyway, I just wanted to note there's changes happening, and that's part of why the podcast has been different and stuff, and why there's more cuts happening and stuff. So we'll talk about that, or I'll talk about that in the channel update. And then aside from that, I guess. Don't forget to, what am I thinking? Don't forget to like and subscribe and leave a comment. We do our best to reply to every comment that we see down there, and we've got links to our website, our social media, our Patreon page if you want to give a monthly contribution. The website should have consistent news content on it for real soon. That's part of this whole change that's happening, and that's part of what we're working towards, so we're excited for that. And I think that's all we have. Oh, hit the bell icon so that you can, why are you getting anxious with your computer?
I did this last time too, but you didn't.
I know, I said the same thing last time as a joke again.
Oh.
Bye, everybody. We appreciate you watching us. Oh, very important. Hi, Calvin. I hope you're doing well.